Uka Uka. The ancients would not allow it. There can be no malice between us. There can be no malice between us.
Alright guys, listen up. We're gonna be bashing our way towards this episode. Hello everyone and welcome back to GameTalk, where we talk about games. And see this game, yeah? Crash Bash. It's a game where you crash your car into people and you bash them. I can't do jokes, can I? Crash Bandicoot had a really good start to the series. 3 universally loved games that rivaled Nintendo's red hat wearing plumber wanker and helped shape Sony's PlayStation. And a spin-off that rivaled Mario Kart as well. Well, you can twist me nips and call me Mr. X, because this series was a goddamn powerhouse at this point, with one game releasing every single year, goddamn. But with Naughty Dog and Universal Interactive's 3-game contract up, and no longer a huge demand by Sony Computer Entertainment to get Naughty Dog to continue Crash Bandicoot, the inevitable departure happened. This departure caused many third-party development teams to continue the series and keep the fans happy. It was the year 2000 and Eurocom Entertainment Software took the role of developing Crash Bash, the last Crash game on the PS1, a party game to rival Mario Party and continue on the legacy of the dim-witted orange wanker. But did it do that? Realistically speaking here, a lot of people, when referring to Crash's glory days being on the PS1, a lot of people like to dismiss Crash Bash, saying that it doesn't hold up in the same way as the original trilogy or CTR, and people like to blame it on the fact that it wasn't made by Naughty Dog. But that seems a bit harsh. I know Naughty Dog did a really good job with their games, but we can't just assume that other developers can't create games like they did. We need to delve deep into this game and see if it's good today, and see if it holds up in the same way as the first 4 Crash games have. And being the 3rd Crash game I've ever played, I'm hoping all the memories and nostalgia will just flood back to me, because I remember loving this game as a kid. But then we delve deep into this game's plot makes no fucking sense. Yeah, you heard that right. A party game about a bunch of mini games with the orange thing has a plot. Why? Crash Team Racing also had a plot, which, while incredibly stupid, at the same time made somewhat sense. You know what? I don't know what an alien would get out of turning the Earth into a parking lot. Crash Bash, however, even for Crash Bandicoot plot standards, is awful. Everything explains itself in the intro cutscene of the game.
Uka Uka, how many times must you be told? You cannot defeat me.
It is I who is the strongest, and it is evil that will ultimately prevail.
This bickering can go on no longer.
Bickering! Aku Aku and Uka Uka are bickering. The forces of good and evil that previously had destructive battles are bickering. Like kids bickering over who's better at Call of Duty. Bickering!
Prepare to fight.
No, Uka Uka. The ancients would not allow it. There can be no malice between us.
No malice between you? Are you broken? What the hell were you doing in the final boss battle of Crash 3 then? Wouldn't you call that malice?
There can be no malice between us.
You are a third.
By the way, the ancients...
The ancients would not allow it.
Who are the ancients? Why won't they allow you to fight? Also, where are they? Where is this? What is this?
What is this?
We're 30 seconds into the intro cutscene and I'm left here completely stunned. So since there can be no malice between them, okay, they summon characters both on the good and evil side to compete in a number of contests to determine if good or evil is better. Who the hell is that? Wait, Brio. He's a good character, right? You helped him destroy Cortex's space station in Crash 2, am I wrong? Why is he on Uka Uka's side exactly? I'm starting to think that Eurocom didn't pay attention to the events of the first games. And since there's an imbalance of good and evil characters, Uka Uka, instead of leaving it as a handicap to win over the good side, he gives Aku Aku 2 competitors, being Tiny and Dingadile. I mean, it would probably make a lot more sense to have Brio and this new character on the good team, but the intro made no sense to begin with, so I don't know what I expected here. So I know in terms of plot, Crash Bandicoot obviously doesn't have to be up to Shakespeare standards, or doesn't have to be crystal clear, but come on, some effort could have been put here. Hell, I'd much rather there be no plot, honestly. If so, I wouldn't have to be so bloody confused right now, because I don't know what just happened. Kingdom Hearts makes more sense, and that's an anime story about Mickey Mouse. At least I could somewhat follow and understand that. Here it's clear that Aku Aku is suffering from amnesia and forgot what happened in Crash 3, and that confuses me even more. How can a mouse get amnesia? Okay, enough about the plot. We don't need to talk about the plot anymore. There's no reason to, and I don't care. Let's just start up the game, shall we?
Sony Computer Entertainment Europe presents.
Did I put in Crash Bash or a horror game? Either way, I just pissed myself.
Developed by Eurocom Entertainment Software. Crash Bash!
Okay, that's more Crash-like. All the memories are flooding back. We also got a cool remix to the theme song of Crash Warped, and I'm liking it. Okay, the main menu looks decent, and Crash! What are you doing, guys? Crash was twerking in the year 2000 before it was mainstream. Yeah, I get that the first game was nicknamed Sonic's ass in development, but geez, Crash, you don't have to show it off. I think we'll start adventure mode a bit later. Battle mode it is. So we got 8 characters to choose from. I'm gonna assume that there's gonna be more to unlock as we progress. So we got the good side and the bad side. Again, why the hell is Brio on the bad side? And okay, that picture, what does it look like? A huge ass with a face and the asshole being the mouth. Who is this anyway? Well, the manual tells me that this is Rilla-Roo, who's the new freak on the block. Okay, that was very descriptive. And why is Rilla-Roo never seen again? Yeah, this is the only Crash game with Rilla-Roo in it. Did he die? Or did the developers think that this was too inappropriate? Because I feel like YouTube might age restrict this video if I don't blur it out. As a party game, there are various mini games to choose from in different game modes. There are 4 game modes to start off, and more to unlock as you do them in adventure mode. Each game mode will host 4 mini games with the same basic premise. We'll go over the unlocked ones now. Nostalgia. First off, we have the ballistics game mode. We have Crash Ball, which is 4-player Pong. Yeah, I can't really add much upon that. Pong with 4 players. You all start off with 15 points, and it will decrease the points by 1 if that ball enters the player's goal. Basically, last man standing. To try and worry about so many balls at once, let alone what everyone else is doing, is a bit tedious already. Plus the fact that this goes on for so long. This is a pretty boring game mode, to be honest, and you have to do it 3 times. Yeah, there are 3 rounds. Come on, I'd rather play normal Pong. And that was made in the 70s. And the other variations are basically the same thing, just with a slight change in gameplay. Beach Ball, where you get a ball stick mechanic. That didn't sound right. And Ballism with a force field power-up, and Sky Balls where the stage tilts. There's nothing that really separates them as separate minigames, and like I said, they're all really boring. I mean, except with Ballism, Engine shows up and spits balls out like crazy. Christ on a bike, this is what World War III would be. Polar Push. Okay, now this is a lot cooler. Basically, you're all riding Polar and trying to knock each other off the slippery glacier. Basically, the Royal Rumble match, but without a cluster of sweaty men in a small ring. There are also power-ups to get from this laser that can either help you like the lightning bolt, which immobilizes your opponents, or hinder you like the weight, which can crush you if you don't pass it on to someone else in the amount of time given. So be quick, otherwise you can become Crash Bandicoot. Someone give me a comedy award. Polar Panic has a basic premise with an ice wall to break, and once it's broken, you can push your opponents off of it. Tilt Panic is my favorite of all of them, where the arena tilts back and forward with no walls to stop you. Melt Panic has the same concept of Tilt Panic, with there being no walls and all, but now Uka Uka will melt parts of the arena. Manic Panic now gives you bombs to throw and straight out murder Polar. Look, he's dead. I thought the polar bear population was decreasing. Eurocom, you sick bastards. Someone call Peter. The Polar Push game mode also makes different characters have different abilities. Depending on the character you chose, your boost action will be different. If you play as Crash or Coco, you'll do your standard lunge using half your stamina bar. But if you use Cortex or Brio, you will use thrusters from a jetpack, which will deliver a far more devastating blow, but will use your entire stamina bar. But if you use Dingodile or Rilla-Roo, well, that makes me feel uncomfortable. Pogo Pandemonium is fairly decent. Pogo Painter, which you have to color as much squares as you can and hit the purple box to get points. The amount of points you get will be determined by how much squares you have colored in, but the others can take over your squares as well. Now, I don't usually wish harm upon anyone, but if you take over my squares in this game, I hope Heihachi from Tekken tosses you into a volcano. You can get rockets to slow down the opponents, and special shoes that make you jump faster. Pogo A Go-Go, where instead of purple boxes to activate your points, you have to create a full circuit. Then we have which is just like Pogo Painter, but Ripperoo shows up and drops TNT all around the place. And Pogo Padlock, which is exactly like Pogo Painter, but with a padlock power-up to lock all your colored squares in place for a short amount of time. Just like the ballistics game mode, there is a lot to try and pay attention to, but at least this one is decently fun. Unless someone takes over your squares, which that's the only time I'm okay with murder. Then we have the most well-known one, Crate Crush, which has a basic premise. Beat each other to bloody pulps with boxes and TNT crates. Maybe this can satisfy you after getting angry at the Pogo minigames, you sadistic fuck. You can also pick up Wumpa Fruit to replenish some health. You first have Jungle Bash, which is exactly what I just explained. Space Bash, where the TNT will destroy a square below you, which you can fall and instantly fall to your death. Snow Bash, which has the same basic premise but with a penguin sleeping in the middle, and if you wake it up, it gets angry and murders anyone in its path. And Drain Bash, which removes TNT crates from metal crates and has missile power-ups to damage your opponents. This game mode is fun, but it does get really repetitive really quickly when you're playing by yourself. So to sum up the minigames unlocked so far, they are fun for the most part, but some do get repetitive, like the Pong minigame and the Crate Crush minigame. And the Pong game mode itself is actually pretty damn boring. But one issue with the game is that it's very multiplayer centered. And yeah, that's what a party game is supposed to be, but unlike CTR, it doesn't cater towards solo play as much as it does to multiplayer, and that does suck. So if you don't have any friends, It's not a very good game to play by yourself. But since this is the latest PS1 Crash game, how does the game look? Well, the environments have the same detail and charm as the previous entries into the Crash series, and that's a given. They're decently detailed and expected for PS1. But the character models themselves, just like Crash Team Racing, have been downgraded from Crash 2 and 3. The characters all have blank facial expressions, which does seem weird with only 4 or occasionally 5 models on screen, but hey, maybe this was a limitation, I don't know. Crash, Cortex, Tiny, and Brio look decent enough, but Dingo Dial looks like a platypus. I guess you could call him a platydial or a Dingo Puss. Koala Kong looks like a mouse. Rillaru, well, I can't really compare it to any other model since he hasn't appeared in any other Crash game, but his mouth is always open in that way and it makes me feel uncomfortable. Plus his picture looks like an ass with eyes and a head of hair. And Coco, well, either she's seen some shit or is on crystal meth. Plus the character voice lines are terrible and have terrible quality to them. The characters, unlike CTR, actually don't say anything. They just grunt, laugh, or make noises you make when you're horny. That sucks because there's a lot less personality now. Cortex has the only decent voice line replicating his evil laugh well. The worst offender is Brio's ones. His grunts are literally stock sound effects of a male grunting, like the same voice lines are used for the Segway guy in Happy Wheels, I shit you not. And Coco's victory voice line? That is the least convincing laugh I've ever heard in my life. Knock knock, who's there? Let us who? Let us stop playing this game. The soundtrack though, well, it's good. There's nothing much to say. It remixes some themes from the previous games and it has a fair few new tracks as well. And you know what? It's good. It sounds like Crash and I give it a big thumbs up. The ass. Okay, that's pretty much all the content this game has besides the unlockables and adventure mode. So I thought, why not jump into adventure mode? What I do love about Crash Bash's adventure mode is that you can play with 2 players. You know what? That is sweet, especially when considering how repetitive the game gets playing solo. That is a nice feature and honestly it would have been a nice touch in CTR. I'm gonna play 1 player though because I have no friends. My name? Oh, well, it's clearly gonna be and I'm gonna choose Cortex because I feel like we have a lot in common. Because we both got a fat head. The adventure mode takes a similar approach to Crash Bandicoot 2 style of Warp Room. How there are different stages with a bunch of levels and a boss fight within them. Completing a certain number of objectives opens up the boss fight and upon completing it, the next stage of levels will be unlocked. Oh, and by the way, adventure mode sucks. Sucks more than I do on a hot summer's day with a good old Calippo! My god, adventure mode is so boring, so tedious. The main reason for this is you know how most of the minigames in each game mode are pretty similar? Well, imagine doing them over and over and over again. Put it this way, you get a trophy each time you complete a minigame, but some bosses will be locked behind other items to get, such as gems and crystals. If you don't get them, you can't progress to the next warp room. The gems and crystals are obtained when revisiting the minigames. When you go back to them, you'll get a handicap such as starting the Pong minigame with less points, be unable to use a certain item, etc. You have to constantly revisit the same minigame, plus constantly do the other minigames which are exactly like the ones you already finished over and over again. At least with CTR you played each track once to finish adventure mode, and 3 times to 100% it. But the thing is there are different tracks and different styles of gameplay between a trophy race, CTR challenge and relic race, and there are 18 different tracks in total. Here there is literally 7 game modes with you doing the same thing with a slight change. That is pretty pathetic. Repetition in video games is something that is hard to brush off, as when you have to repeat the same task so many times, it gets boring. The only thing that kept me playing was the boss battles, and yes, there are boss battles, and unlike CTR, they have some creativity to them. The first boss, Papu's Pummel. This boss is awful. God damn it, Papu. You are nothing short of a joke in Crash 1. In CTR, you were somewhat difficult because of the track layout, and here you've become a joke again. Dodge his attacks, kill the small crashes, throw box at Papu, rinse and repeat. Sure, it's not as bad as Crash 1, but surprisingly worse than CTR's, which is a shame because CTR's boss races were pathetic. Oh shit, he died. No, look, he's dead. How is this a 3+ game? See, this is how violence in video games started. Listen to the news, kids. The news is always right. The second boss, though, makes up for it. The Bearminator. This is actually a completely new character. Holy shit, what's with Crash Bandicoot and horrifying polar bears? This boss implements the Polar Push game mode, where the Bearminator shoots robot bears at you in the arena that shoots rockets at you. You knock them off the stage, get a rocket, and shoot the polar bear in the face. Hold on, Eurocom, do you have something against polar bears? First straight up murdering polar, now shooting a polar bear with a rocket? Peter's gonna be all over your ass, guys. You better watch out. Nevertheless, this is hands down the best boss in the game, and is really cool for a Crash boss. The third boss, Big Bad Fox. Ooh, is this another new character? Oh, nope, it's the Komodo Bros. Okay then. This boss battle is also really cool and incorporates the Locked Tank Wars game mode. This kind of reminds me of Engine from Crash 3, with there being multiple stages and all, and different obstacles to dodge. Hold on, why did the Komodo Bros look like the 2D models from the PS1 Hercules game? You destroy their weapons, and after you've done that, they chase you and attack you with their own tanks. What I do like though is that if you die at a certain point, you won't have to restart the whole battle from the beginning. That is really cool. The fourth and final boss, Oxide Ride. Yeah, there are only 4 bosses in this game unlike the previous Crash games which had 5 or more. If you couldn't tell by the name, you're versing Nitrous Oxide from CTR, and there are 2 elements to the boss. First, you have to chase him and avoid his attacks and other obstacles, kinda like Cortex in Crash 2. It's challenging, but pretty boring to be honest. Then it transitions to, the Pong minigame, aka the worst minigame. Yeah, it's a pretty disappointing final boss to be honest. Not as disappointing and as anticlimactic as Cortex in Crash 2, but to end on the worst game mode, that is a bit shit. But there is a problem with the boss battles. There are no lives. I'm serious. Just like I have no friends to play Crash Bash with. I don't know, when there's just no lives and you can constantly die and restart the boss battles, it seems a bit ass. There's no incentive to pay close attention and make sure you don't die since there's not much punishment for it. After you defeat Oxide, the ending plays will actually be different depending on if you chose a good or a bad character. If you played 2-player and chose both good and bad characters, you settle it in a final battle against each other. That is a pretty good touch. Another warp room unlocks after you finish and will contain all the locked minigames to unlock. I really can't be bothered to unlock them as you have to do more annoying shit, but some would argue I'm an annoying shit, and you know what? I stand corrected. The locked game modes and minigames consist of Tank Wars, which was used in the Komodo Bros boss fight, which is hard to get used to the controls, but it is good fun at the end of the day. Basically, just shoot your opponents and get power-ups like bombs and mines, etc. And each different minigame in the game mode will have a different stage layout and different obstacles. But sometimes the NPCs like to trap you between them, and it gets kind of annoying. Crash Dash, which is a fairly decent game mode, but gets really repetitive after a few goes, especially considering that you have to win 3 rounds in one game. It's basically a racing minigame that you can knock your opponents off the stage. It's fun for a bit, but like I said, pretty repetitive. It's basically miniature NASCAR with Crash characters. Never thought I would say that combo, but you know what? When you're on crystal meth like Coco, anything's possible. Then we have Medieval Mayhem, which all minigames in this mode are very different from one another. Ring Ding, which you have to pop balloons depending on your color. Dragon Drop, where you're all riding dragons and have to collect a jewel and shoot it at a moving target from different areas on the stage to get extra points. This is a pretty fun minigame. Mallet Mash, where you crush mushrooms and get the most points. And Keg Kaboom, where you leave gunpowder trails and ignite the powder kegs to collect points. The medieval game mode is pretty damn fun. Even funner than playing with those hoses with the adjustable nozzles. No, just me. Was I the only one addicted to wasting water with those things? Great job, Danka. Way to embarrass yourself on the internet. Alrighty, so we've covered all the minigames, game modes, adventure mode. What else is there? Wait, play that clip from before. So we got 8 characters to choose from. I'm gonna assume that there's gonna be more to unlock as we progress. There's not. Just like how there's not any friends to play Crash Bash with. 8 characters? Is that it? Especially when CTR had 15 characters and arguably more content. That is actually really disappointing. I get it, it's a party game, so it doesn't have to have that much characters, but still 8 for a late era PS1 game is pretty shitty. 12 would have been a good amount, especially when considering that Ripperoo, Engine, Papu Papu, the Komodo Bros, and Oxide appear in the game already. And where's Entropy or Fake Crash, Hello? What's that? Fake Crash is in the Japanese version of the game? Oh, what's that? I'm speaking into a mouse? Yeah, I know. In the Japanese version of Crash Bash dubbed Crash Bandicoot Carnival, Fake Crash does appear as a bonus character. But I don't know if you noticed, but does it look like I'm Japanese? Nah, I'm from fucking Australia! Land of the VB, home of the Tony Abbott. So in the end, Crash Bash isn't a bad game, as everyone likes to say it is. It's not necessarily a good game, but it is pretty annoying to play solo. But I'm telling you right now, get one of those PS1 multi-tap boomerang things, get 4 people, and then you will have a blast. As a game by itself, it's pretty boring and not interesting. But it's another one of those games that is just fun to dick around with your mates for a few hours. Probably another good game to play when you're drunk as well. Actually, don't play the pogo game when you're drunk. There's no telling what you might do. I actually can't stress enough how fun this game is for a good few hours with a bunch of people playing all these wacky minigames, especially the polar bear riding one. No matter what you hear from this game, you'll be pleasantly surprised how fun it is. But objectively, the game isn't that good. Put it this way, it's 7 games rehashed over and over, and even more rehashed in adventure mode when you have to revisit minigames to unlock more content. And I don't see any cheats like CTR to unlock that stuff, and that sucks, because this is one of those games that you want to have everything unlocked from the beginning and just hop into the battle mode. The big problem with the game though is repetition. You constantly do the same things over and over and it gets really boring. Not just with adventure mode, but some minigames are pretty much exactly the same. This makes replayability pretty much non-existent in this game. And that is so disappointing because that addictiveness and that replayability was something that the first 4 Crash games all had and it did really well. Nevertheless though, Crash Bash makes the OK list and gets a 5.5 out of 10. Unlike CTR to Mario Kart, Crash Bash doesn't hold up to Mario Party in the slightest. Honestly, without hesitation, I would recommend any other Mario Party game over Crash Bash. But hey, this game exists and this is really the only Crash Party game. Well, no other Crash Party game that's worth your time, that is at least. And who knows, maybe I enjoyed this game more because of my nostalgia. It's pretty hard to tell, but what I can tell you is that I won't be replaying this game for a long time. But in other news, Rillaroo for CTR nitro-fueled anyone? No? Just me. Come on guys, I want to see that ass face in HD. guess who made it to the end? If you answered you, then you would be correct. Yeah, I don't know where that came from, but thank you so much for watching, especially to the end. Now listen, if you want to support the channel, give this video a share, a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe with those notifications turned on, because we're pushing 2,000 subs and I want you to be a part of that. Don't forget to check out the previous episode of Game Talk and the rest of the playlist, and I'll talk to you before you know it. See you later!